Hello everyone, Kristina Werner here with another video for SSSTF.com. Welcome, welcome. Today I am using the Snow One Like You stamp set from Pink and Maine. It's their collaboration set for STAMPtember, and it's such a cute set. So I wanted to create a card similar to what I've got sketched to the side, but if you notice, I have a greeting nestled in right next to the mug, right over where those little swirls of steam would be. So in order to kind of make it easier so I don't have to mask off that area, I'm going to do a little bit of stamp surgery. It doesn't permanently alter the stamp. Well, I guess it sort of does, but you can put it back together and use it as a whole image again if you wish to do that in the future. Taking my scissors, and I'm very carefully sliding the blades of my scissors in between those lines and just cutting around that mug, the swirls of steam, and also this little marshmallow snowman's hand. So I just took my time. I went fairly slow until I got all the way to the end, and that little point just needed to have a little bit of extra cut to get that out. What this does is it takes away the lines of steam, so I don't have to worry about it when I'm stamping. Just makes it a little bit easier. And like I said, I can always put these two pieces back together if in the future I want to stamp them like the original design. Just like that. They kind of stick back together because of the stamp material. So I took my surgeried stamp and also another image from the set, and I stamped both of these onto some Neenah Solar White 80-pound cardstock, and I use Simon's Stamp Intense Black ink. I use this ink in particular because it is a Copic-friendly ink, and I'm going to be using some alcohol markers. I'm using Copics today to color my images. Now, I stamped these images twice, or actually 3 times, and then I stamped the greeting. And the ink needs to dry a little bit so it won't smear when I color. So I set the stamped images aside, and I'm going to work on the card base. This is some dark blue navy cardstock from Hero Arts, and I've cut and scored it to create a top folding A2 sized card. I'm now using my MISTI stamp positioning tool. Once again, I've removed the foam pad inside so it can accommodate a thicker cling stamp. And I've put my MISTI sticky mat inside, and my card base is going to stick to that mat while I stamp. I'm using the Center Cut Snowflakes cling stamp from Simon's Stamp today. I just thought it'd be really fun to have my snowman in the center of the card and have these snowflakes kind of coming out from behind. So this is great. These snowflakes are already all together, and it's going to create a great background. I prepped my card base with an anti-static powder tool. In this case, this is the COTTONTAIL from Rabbit Hole Designs. And then I inked up my cling stamp in Versamark ink. Versamark is a very sticky ink. It's perfect for heat embossing because it gives you quite a bit of time before you have to apply the powder. You want the ink to stay sticky, and sometimes if you use other inks, they start to dry before you can actually get your embossing powder on it, but not with Versamark. It's a great embossing ink. So I'm going to kind of roll back the sticky mat and let it release the card base. This is an older sticky mat. I've used it many times, so it's not quite as sticky as it was before. And I actually think at this point is the perfect amount of stickiness. Putting that plastic protective sheet back on top so I can store it for later. My embossing powder today is Gilded Embossing Powder from Burtis Monroe. It's a nice gold shade. I thought it would look very festive and great for the holidays since this is a holiday themed card. Sprinkled on that embossing powder and tapped off the excess, and then I used my heat tool to heat set the powder until it was melted. You can tell it's melted because the color of the powder changes immediately, and at that point you can move your heat tool away so that you don't scorch your paper or heat it too long. So now that I have my card base all figured out, I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to work on the images. Now, this mug image is so cute. It's nice and blank. You can do lots of fun things with it. I decided I wanted to have fun and add like a scalloped edge up at the top and then some stripes. So I'm using a pencil to sketch that on, and then I'll use a black Copic multi-liner to draw on the lines. This just makes it look like it's part of the stamp, but I definitely could have just eliminated the black lines altogether. Some other ideas you could do for this mug was you could stamp a white snowflake, a big one on it, or maybe add polka dots. You could do wavy colored lines. You could even make it into a plaid pattern or mask off the mug and do some stenciling inside. It's left blank and it's really, really fun because you can either color it a certain way or you can put your greeting on the mug. There are lots of different things you can do with it. So now I've broken out my Copic markers and I'm going to do some coloring. For the marshmallow snowman, I wanted them to look warmer and kind of toasty since that's what the greeting says. So I used this light tan shade for the shading. I also added a lighter shade to get it to blend out just a little bit. In the end, I think I probably should have just gone for a gray because then the snowman would look more white, but I did like the look of the warm toasted marshmallows. I added a brown for the hot cocoa, and then I came in with my favorite red combo of Copic colors. There's actually 4 colors. I'll add a 4th here in a minute, but I love this color combination because you get a nice, rich red shade when you're finished. I'm basically putting the darker shades on the sides of the mug, a little more shading on the side with the snowman, and then I'm using the lighter shades more near the center. Now here's that 4th color, which might seem a little bit strange, but it's my go-to. It's a dark brown, kind of a reddish brown, and just by bringing that in, it gives such depth of color to the shadows in my red shades. So for this little tiny area on the scarf, I decided it would be best to start with the darkest shade and move to the lighter shades just because I didn't want to add too much ink to the paper and possibly have it bleed out. I moved on to a green stripe on my mug, and I'm just doing the same exact thing that I did before with the lighter shades in the center and the darker shades on the outer edge. For this snowman scarf, I decided to change up the colors a little bit and introduce a blue. This is a nice denim color combination. I love this combination of these 3 colors. And then I came in with a very, very light gray just to add some shading to the areas that I wanted to keep white, but I needed to have a little bit of dimension. So I just used an N1, a neutral gray, just to bring that in on each side. And then I used some darker grays for the top hat. I did paint their, or not paint, but color their cheeks with a little bit of pink, and then used a pale blue for the snow under this other one. For detail on the scarves, I added some darker red stripes using that darkest red. And then for this blue scarf, I took the colorless blender and started just putting little dots all over the blue. And I ended up switching over to the chisel end of my marker because I needed a little more ink coming out. And just adding these little dots gives it a little bit of a texture, almost looks like a fleece scarf. I love how that turned out. I'm going to add a little more detail onto this mug. I'm taking the 3 small snowflakes from the stamp set and I'm stamping that in Versamark ink, and then I'll be adding some white embossing powder this time. I thought it'd be fun just to have some snowflakes on that mug. And now this makes me want to find a mug that looks like this because how adorable would a hot cocoa mug like this look? I used my heat tool to heat set that. By the way, this was alabaster embossing powder from British Monroe. And then I took a white gel pen. This is a number 10 bold jelly roll. And I added some little details, some little sparkles and snow and some little dots going along that green stripe. I also added a few little dots up into the white area, just so it looks like this smattering of snowflakes goes all over the mug. So I grabbed the additional circles die set from Waffle Flower, and I'm going to cut a circle around this mug image, and I'll run that through my die cutting machine. And then for the other one, I just used some scissors and trimmed around that. I believe there are dies for this set, but I didn't have the dies on hand, so I just used my scissors and did a little bit of fussy cutting. I wanted to add a little bit more gold detail around the center area of the card, so I dragged my Versamark ink pad around the edge of this circle. And then I dipped the circle into my gold embossing powder. Once again, this is gilded embossing powder from British Monroe. And I dipped that in, and then I took a dry brush, a very small one, and just went around the edge to take away any of the embossing powder that was just a little bit too thick on that edge. I wanted a very dainty gold edge on this circle. I used my heat tool to heat set this until all of it was melted, and it does heat up very quickly since it's such a small area. I used some foam adhesive from Simon on the back of my circle area, and then I put a bunch of foam adhesive on the back of that individual snowman as well, and I doubled up on the foam adhesive on that one so that it would stand above the circle. So that's the finished card for today. Hope you guys enjoyed. Just a reminder that this is a STAMPtember collaboration set with Pink and Maine, which means that once this stamp set is sold out, it's never coming back. So if you fell in love with these little marshmallow snowmen like I did, make sure you pick them up over at the STAMPtember.com shop as soon as you can. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in another video very soon.
I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at SimonsSaysStamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.